Welcome back to another episode of Dear FoundHer. I am very excited about today's guest. Those of you who are at our spring Dear FoundHer on tour stops received some of her products in your gift bag. I have talked about her products on my social media a lot, and I am very excited that Elina Wang, who is the founder of ESW Beauty, is here to share her story. So Elina, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to chat and share anything that you want to hear.
Of course. So I'd love for you to start us off by sharing your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about ESW Beauty and how you got started.
Yeah. So little about ESW Beauty first, which gives more context. We are a wellness-inspired skincare brand, products all made in Korea. So my background starts with K-Beauty. I started very young. I started working in high school and I essentially apprenticed for my mom. She had a very small Korean beauty distribution business, which essentially means she sourced products and then sold them to retailers. So B2B was always something that was in my DNA. I did that throughout high school and then college. And then I was going through some health issues along the way. I had severe stomach ulcers, and eventually that led me to my wellness journey where I really had to reset my diet, eat healthier, drink healthier, and I fell in love with these better for you beverages. And so I've always thought to create a brand, a skincare brand, but I was looking for a white space. And I thought of the idea of making a wellness-inspired skincare brand, and that's how our first line, the Raw Juice face masks, launched in 2019. We've been bootstrapped the whole time, 6 years plus. I took a little bank loan, $25,000 to create samples, and then I brought it to a trade show. And as mentioned, B2B was in my DNA. I really pitched heavily to retailers. And so I got my foot into the door with some initial ones like Kohl's and then eventually Whole Foods. And that started the entire retail distribution journey.
So that was 2019 when you initially had the samples, you went to the trade show and you got into those initial retailers like right off the bat?
Yes.
So what was the journey like once you get into the retailers? This obviously spawned this whole journey for you. What do you do next in terms of driving demand to those retailers? And I think like you have an interesting story because I think a lot of people don't get into retailers right off the bat, right? Like that's pretty remarkable that you're sitting here telling me, and I went to a trade show and I got right into Kohl's. What was next in terms of driving demand? Because you have to make sure that people are buying these products if you're on the retail shelf.
Yeah. So first, for some context, our products, we're a category leader in the face mask space. So our hero line is our Raw Juice face masks. Eventually, we created eye patches, our latte eye patches, and then lip treatments, our smoothie lip treatments. We just launched facial mists, our infused water facial mists, and this year we have a lot of exciting products to come. So with that being said, the first few years was selling the masks, and I think part of the magic with retail with our products was that they were very strong impulse buys and they were able to sell themselves because of packaging. But the retention came from the quality of the formula and people loving how, their skin felt. Over the years, as we continue to build more momentum, we really heavily relied on social media and then influencer strategy, community building to get more brand awareness and teach consumers about our products. And for a higher price point item like lip treatment and eventually skincare, that's something that you have to do.
Talk to me a little bit about this community play. Those who have been around here for a long time know that I lean heavily on community. My whole philosophy in terms of marketing and building and growing a business is that you have to start with community, and community comes first, and you can never compromise your community. And I think that obviously you're in a category, you're in health and beauty, that there's a ton of options. Obviously, you were new to the space. And I also think that you came around a time when K-beauty wasn't necessarily rolling off people's tongues, right? I mean, like, it's been around for a while, but definitely more prevalent now thanks to social media. Talk to me a little bit about how you leaned into this community aspect of growing a community or building a community to help lend itself to your sales.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think about it in a few different ways. How we grow or how we create a community is different than growing them and nurturing them. We find a lot of people find us through products actually first in stores, but then also we do a lot of partnerships with colleges and do a lot of sorority campaigns and have ambassadors. I think growing community is really talking to them, listening to them. So we use TYB as a platform to communicate with our fans. Obviously listen on social media. I talk to them on social media, and then hopefully using my own platform to help continue to grow this community. They're called the Dreamers. So like what I like to do now is I call some of our customers here and there, talk to them and get to know what they're liking. And that really helps with listening to feedback.
When you first started, did you do this alone?
I have a co-founder.
Okay. And what are your roles in terms, like how do your roles differ from one another?
I focus more on the sales, marketing, product, and then he focuses on operations, supply chain, and we share a bit of finance.
And did you go into the business as co-founders, or was he brought on after?
We went in as co-founders. So I met him, very funny story. He was my boyfriend at the time. Now we're no longer dating, but I met him from that dating, but then eventually he worked with me in my mom's family business. So he was actually on his way to medical school. He is a very smart, think like your A+ valedictorian nerd guy, and he nearly got full score on his MCATs. And so that was his type of personality. And then he had a gap year in between that and then starting to apply for med school. So then he was working with me for a little bit. It was kind of a temporary situation, but then it evolved into a full-time, full business situation because he wanted to pivot and I pitched the idea and that's how we started.
I know I'm backing up a little bit, but it's because I have all these questions running through my head. But when you first started this, like what was the void that you saw in the marketplace? Like I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that. And I think about that in terms of the fact that like K-beauty again really wasn't it wasn't such a big thing. Maybe in your circles or your world it was, but like for me and like my girls, they're 12 and 15 now, like I would say this kind of just has surfaced for us within the last few years. So what was that void that you were like we need this?
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I thought about it less on the K-beauty edge. It was more of there weren't enough brands that gave prestige, Sephora level quality and branding, but in a mass market. And that's what we wanted to do. So we're specifically an indie mass brand is like what I like to call it. And I created that through using quality Korean formulas, Korean art, and very elevated, healthy, but fun branding. And those were the features that created this brand. But truly, when you go into stores, you find us in like a Target, Walgreens, you'll see that our branding is very elevated. And also checks all the boxes. Our products are derm tested. They are clean, vegan, also clinically effective.
So once you got into these initial stores, you started marketing, you started selling. What was next? What took off next?
It was establishing ourselves in the face mask scene, knowing how to create a very strong product foundation pipeline, getting into retailers. So next was creating a new product line, our smoothie lip treatments, which ended up being very, very successful. And then continuing to launch into more retailers, go deeper, and then continuing to build community.
I just want you to know I have one of the lip treatments in every bag.
God.
I mean, really, it's really one of my favorite. They're in everywhere, and I actually take them from my kids because my kids they don't care and they don't really use, but I love them. So, and not that my kids don't, but they're just different in terms of how they use products. But but I have them in all of my bags. So thank you.
I have mine right here, my white pitaya coconut.
What would you say if someone had said to you, what was like the moment that you knew like this is going to really take off and we have a really solid product here?
Yeah. Honestly, I've had a lot of those moments along the way, but the first small one was my first $100,000 PO from Kohl's. That gave me very, nowadays it's not a whole lot because running a business is very expensive, but it gave me confidence. And then our launch into really established retailers like Whole Foods, Target, CVS, Walgreens, performing well in those stores. Those are really the moments. And then last year I hit 8 figures top line for the first time. And I think that
Congrats.
was another very good like boost of not confidence, but like reassurance that I'm on the right track.
Congratulations, by the way. I mean, that's huge, right? Let's talk a little bit about the retail scene. So you talked about the Kohls, you got into Kohl's, that was your first retailer. Did retailers come to you after, or were you actively selling the retailers, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. There's a story for each one. I think for a lot of them, it was us pitching to them. But later on, we've gotten some inbound pitches as well. Retailers who've requested us, like Walgreens, they reached out to us because they were looking to reset their planogram. They wanted to bring in new consumers. They wanted that Gen Z customer to come in, and they were looking for brands to be able to support with that. And they eyed us as a brand that could do that.
How was the Target experience? That must have been huge. I mean, I know that that's like I mean, every retailer's big, right? But I do feel like when I talk to CPG founders, Target kind of stands out a little bit.
Definitely. Target was huge, and they are a great partner. And it's a really good way to be able to connect with our audience. So currently we have a few lip treatments at Target, and then, some good programs coming up soon, some seasonal programs.
So I know that you were at Whole Foods recently. That kind of came up in our conversation. And I'd like to ask you a little bit about Whole Foods in the sense that I feel like Whole Foods from a retail perspective is really the most in alignment with the ethos and the mission of your brand. And so I would guess that that was probably also a very big feather in your cap when Whole Foods wanted to put their stamp of approval and have you on shelves.
Absolutely, 100%. And they were our first anchor retailer, meaning for me, national retailer that truly had a strong conviction. And they first placed 5 masks, and then now we have our masks, 9 lip treatments, eye patches, facial mist, and then they're bringing on our skincare that we're launching soon. But yes, they absolutely, match our ethos. We formulate against Whole Foods body care standards. And I think for us, we also, similar to Walgreens, we bring in fresh new energy to their assortment. And that really helps with the younger consumer, and even the young mom herself. So I think it's always about how you can help the retailer, but then retailer helping you. It's a symbiotic relationship.
How much of your business is D2C online?
Currently, it's not a whole lot. It's very small. It was very intentional because I wanted to make sure my marketing dollars were spent very wisely. But this year, I'm really working hard to begin to invest into it and grow it.
I know you said in the beginning of our conversation that you bootstrapped your business. Have you ever raised, or has it been bootstrapped from the beginning?
Bootstrapped from the beginning. We've never raised any outside capital.
That's really fucking awesome. I mean, like you say that for those of you who are listening and not watching, because I know some of you watch this on YouTube, but for those of you who are listening, not watching, Elina's sitting here like all demure, like we just bootstrapped to 8 figures.
I mean, it's really hard.
Yes, it is. Yeah. But what I'm saying is like, girl, like you should be jumping out of your skin, I mean, like you should be so proud of yourself. That's huge. It's huge because I do feel like CPGs get to a point, right? Where like, if they're not investing, it's how do they take it from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, right? And like you were able to do this. Like that's amazing. And that's an amazing story. But there's manufacturing that goes into this. There are hard costs that go into your product. And to be able to do this without any investment is a really big deal. And most product brands can't do that. How are you able to do this without taking outside investment?
Yeah. I think one, you have to be very, very smart with your cash. You have to be very tight, which is why in the beginning, I didn't choose to invest in D2C because very quickly you can spend a lot on ads, influencers, all that can add up. Eventually you do have to build a very strong brand because ultimately you need to bring customers into stores. But that was one. And then 2 is using other options. So we relied on factoring and PO financing. which helps a lot, which helps with cash flow, because with factors, basically they are a third-party company that will pay you first, and they'll take some interest. So typically retail is 30, 60, 90. And then PO financing, they would pay your suppliers and then you would pay them back in 4 months. So that helps with the cash flow cycle.
How did you know to do this? Or was this something that your co-founder on the finance side really kind of spearheaded this operation? Because I would not know any of this that you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I don't know how we first figured it out, but when I was working for my mom, she did a little bit of factoring. I think we just might have gotten some pitches along the way. And then PO financing, we met, you go to trade shows, not only do you pitch to buyers, but there are service companies that pitch to you. And so we learned about these options that we could use.
What does your team look like today?
So we have about 2 to 4 people per team, and that includes marketing, operations, sales, creative, PD, and finance. So in total, we have about 18 people right now.
Do you have an office or is it all remote?
We do have an office. It's mainly a warehouse with some office space. So our ops team goes in daily, but the creatives team, we meet when we have to meet. It's mainly remote.
What have been some of the biggest challenges that you have faced in growing this business and bootstrapping this business?
So many. I mean, bad hires. I think team is very, very important. You are only as strong as quickly, especially at a stage now, as your team. I think also late shipments from supplier side, they're made in Korea, which is amazing. Korean R&D is great, but the lead time can be a minute sometimes. So if there's some issues on the supplier side or supply chain, starting from raw materials, being late, then it adds up. So that just teaches us, those lessons taught us to buy earlier, ahead of time, and source earlier. Then on the opposite side, if you buy too much inventory, which we've done before because we were a little scared about getting products inventory late. So then we were like, okay, well, let's buy a bit more. That leads to some cash flow issues. So everything goes hand in hand, taking learnings from each lesson and making sure that we don't apply that again. But running a business is tough. Sometimes these things, but you have to make decisions that, are tough.
Elina, you talked a little bit in the beginning about when we were talking about how you got customers, about you educating people and leaning into social media. How much is your personal brand invested in your overall brand? How much do you lean into you?
I, over the years, have leaned in more and more. In the very beginning, I did not want to be online, but now I am posting daily, if not 2 times a day. Because I think, I want to share more about the brand. There's so much more to it than the products. It stems from the DNA from, my story and how I think about products. And then 2, I think that's a really good way to build community if I talk to them and they know who I am.
A big piece of what I talk about a lot with the women in the Dear FoundHer community is the importance of sharing your story and the importance of leaning into yourself. And people want to buy from people. How do you stand out? And they don't want to talk to social media, and that's okay. And I give them a lot of alternatives to video, even though I think video is key. But I would love for them to hear from someone who has had such success, the outcomes that have transpired from this.
You build loyal customers, build loyal following. I think if they know who you are beyond the product on the shelf and they know your story, they feel like they can trust your brand. I would not say I'm an expert at all. I think I am still figuring it out and every day trying to understand how I can give back to my fans or community online. And I think that's something that a creator should always think about. But I think building a more loyal community is probably the biggest outcome. And also, I think networking, building relationships with others. Sometimes, I found when you go into a true in-person networking space, it can be intimidating. But I've noticed because I've posted online, some people might come up to me first. And that just makes it a whole lot easier. You never know who's watching you. And even I'm surprised that that I'm posting. That's great. That's one example that we have to connect.
I mean, yes, we do, but it's so important. I think it's so important. And I love what you just said, because I feel like people come up to me a lot and say like, oh, I love what you share, or like, I've seen you online. And I've never really thought about that until you just said it. I mean, it's so simple, right? But I guess I do it because it's part of what I do. And it does open the door to conversation. And people do think they know you, and that's great. Like, I think like if you're doing this right, people do think they know you, and they should think they know you, even if they don't really know you. Mm-hmm. And I've had great conversations because people have seen me online, and I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I got a speaking engagement at the gym today from someone who follows me online. She came up to me and was like, I was thinking, because I've seen you here, and I would love, literally, I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, that sounds great. Yeah. Do you consider yourself a creator? That you just use that word? But I'm asking because obviously the creator economy is huge, right? But would you consider yourself a creator first or a founder, or both?
I think founder first, but now more so a creator. I actually recently just started posting a lot more and truly become more disciplined in integrating, because it's also work to create content. You have to really think about, what do people want to see? How can I give back? Which is very important. That's something I'm really thinking about now. You can't take, you have to give, right? You have to give, whether it's entertainment or knowledge. Those are probably the main things that you could give. But I would say, because I've been more disciplined recently and making it a big priority, and I've been loving it, I hope that I'm a bit of a creator now.
Are you making an effort to go on podcasts a lot?
When I can. Yeah.
Because I think that's such a big piece of it too. Like, I know we're not really talking about that today, but like, as we're talking about like your personal brand and leaning in, like you just said something that I think is so important. You just said, it's so hard to create content, and because it is, right? It takes a lot of time. But when you go on a podcast, and I know we're not sitting together today, but you're going to all of a sudden have, 30 minutes of video of you talking about your brand from this podcast. That's content that you can share.
That's true.
Right?
That's very, very true. Yeah.
And so
I definitely need to work on it more. I love it when I can. And it's so much fun. And I feel like too, podcasts are really when I can see my own growth, because every single time I share something new and something different, hopefully it's a little more, there's more meat to it, or even just thinking about how I've grown since the last one. But absolutely, I think I just love sharing and love giving, as much information as I can.
And it's sharing your story, though. It all goes back to that, right? Like, it's sharing your story, and you're building this connection. And, a lot of the women most of the women in our listenership are not Gen Z. And I know that's your target customer, where some of them are Gen Z's parents, but I use your products. And so I do think that it opens up the door also to, even though we're not your primary target, there's no reason why the women who are listening and watching you can't be using your products too. And so Absolutely. I think, right? Where are you guys in terms of, I know you said 8 figures in revenue, but in terms of retail doors, how many?
I think last we counted around like 19,000 doors across North America.
Are you in other places outside of North America?
No, just Canada, just US and Canada now.
Are you looking to expand outside of North America?
Yeah, we are. I think first would be in Central Latin America. So we have a couple opportunities there for Q4 and then Q1 next year, but definitely in Latin America, and then eventually into UK, Europe. If
you were to tell someone just one sentence about ESW, what would it be?
Wellness, K-beauty inspired skincare brand.
I was just curious. Like, that was just, I ask, I don't really usually ask that, but I feel like you have such a diverse product, right? That falls into so many different potential communities. And I wanted to hear what you were going to say when I asked you that. So what is on the horizon for you guys?
Skincare. So we are launching right now. I'm working on it. I'm so excited. Serum, moisturizer, and eye cream this year. Also another really exciting licensing partnership. We did our first ever one last year with Liquid Death. We made Liquid Death face masks. And this year we have an incredible partner for eye patches. And then continuing to build on skincare. I think there's so much more that I can do with innovation and creativity there. And continuing to build community.
When you say continuing to build community, what are some of the goals that you have in mind, and what does that mean to you?
My wish list would be a community brand trip. That's something I would love to do. Events are really important. So we've done events in New York, LA, so continuing to do that, but then in cities throughout America, and then continuing to build on our sorority and college ambassador programs. I think having people, because I can only say so much, but I want to be able to build a community of dreamers. That's what our name is, of ambassadors, to continue to share the brand and products with their friends.
What are 3 actionable tips that you would tell another female founder who is just getting started?
Wow, great question. I think one is really think about the white space and how you are bringing something new to the market. 2 is to really plan out cash and be able to think through like how long or at least have a general plan. I think a lot of entrepreneurs going in, new entrepreneurs, don't really realize how important and how quickly cash goes. So at least like 1 to 2 years, have a good plan. And then 3 is think about like who you need to be able to help you, because there's no founder that knows everything. So either it's a co-founder or hires, but think about who and then when.
Elina Wang, co-founder and CEO of ESW Beauty. I am so glad that you are here today. I'm so glad that you shared your story with us and this knowledge with us. And again, I'm like watching you right now. You're like so even keeled talking about your success. And I am like jumping out of my seat, so proud of you. And I just met you, but you've really built something awesome. And you are one to watch. And I will say that you are one to watch. And I cannot wait to watch and see where this goes. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for such insightful and thoughtful questions.
Thank you. That means a lot. If you take one thing from this conversation, take this. Elina didn't bootstrap to 8 figures by being scrappy in some vague inspirational sense. She did it by learning 2 very specific financial tools, factoring and PO financing, and by being disciplined enough to hold off on a D2C spend until the brand could earn it. That's not a vibe, that's a strategy, and it's the unglamorous stuff nobody wants to post about. If today's episode resonated with you and you want to build your own version of this, the free Tuesday quick win in the FoundHer files this week picks right up where this conversation leaves off. Next Tuesday, we're staying behind the curtain with the founder who built her business through the hardest operational stretch imaginable and came out the other side with nearly 80 locations. I'll see you then.